Welcome everyone to the Learning to Birth webinar series, where we interview some of the world's most interesting and inspiring thought leaders about birth, pregnancy, and postpartum. And today we have with us Anne Margolis. Welcome, Anne.
Hi.
Hey, everyone. Anne is a licensed certified nurse midwife, a licensed FEM teacher, a certified clarity breathwork practitioner, yoga teacher and practitioner, and has helped thousands of families in her 20+ year midwifery practice, and has personally ushered in the births of over 1,000 healthy babies into the world. Now you are national #1 and international best-selling author of Natural Birth Secrets, an insider's guide how to give birth holistically, healthfully, and safely, and love the experience. What a great book title that is, Anne. That's phenomenal. What was the story behind you becoming like an international bestseller?
I don't know. I think it was, I had, like I was telling you, I have a large social media following, which kind of happened by accident because my daughter said, about 5 years ago, she said, "Mom, you should be on Instagram because you're so passionate and you love to educate and inspire, and that's the way to really reach more people." And I'm like, "What's Instagram?" Like one more thing on the computer, because I'm very in, believe it or not, even though I have a very large, I have a large following. She gave me the 101 on how to post, and I was, I get these gorgeous pictures from a lot of families in my practice, and people would send pictures to me, and then I was just off being myself and posting, and then it's like over. Wow. Between, I think, Facebook and Instagram, it's like over, I don't know, it just keeps going up. 95,000, close to 100,000 followers.
I have to say, I'm really grateful to live in a time where a natural holistic birth advocate can be technically a social media influencer. I mean, how awesome is that?
Also because people who know me know that I'm passionate about being unplugged. Yeah. Unplug, get offline and connect to people, connect to yourself, like think deeply, right? I have, like, so many moms come and tell me they're stressed out, they're not sleeping. I mean, they're on Facebook at 2 a.m, they can't, or they're on Instagram scrolling, and there's so many, I'm very wary of the negative health effects of and the addiction of in the modern world to the phone. And who would know that my posting went crazy, and so everyone thinks I'm on social media. Yes, I schedule my posts in advance, but I really am very unplugged.
Well,
through the social media, I've been interviewed a lot, and somebody who interviewed me years ago wanted to. She said, "Do you travel?" I'm like, "Well, I love travel." Like, she says, "No, like how can I? I love your philosophy. How can you share kind of what you like? How can I get someone like you in San Francisco, for example, or maybe you should make a course. Actually, I'm in film and editing. Why don't you come out to San Francisco and I'll film you making a course?" I'm like, what? Like how do you bring families through your practice so that holistically and that they have these empowered she just had this idea, and I took her up on it, and so that's how the course. I went out to San Francisco, and she this was a doula who interviewed me, right, and it happens to be so we made the course, and she's still a wonderful buddy of mine. We really hit it off, and then somebody had approached me because of my blogs. And based on my posts, like, maybe I should put a book out. I'm like, right. So I took a book, because I have all these handouts, and I have all these I have this written stuff that I that I give families that come into my practice on all the holistic modalities of what they can do for the, all the common discomforts of pregnancy, and, how to prepare, your family and postpartum and all the different things that, kind of, I guess I would say, an adjunct to the course. On a lot of the topics, like, what do I do when the family's against my birth plan? What do I want my kids at the birth? Do I not? Like, just a lot of different topics. And I wrote over the years common, the common questions that I get, like handouts. And someone had said, maybe you should make a book of that. So I did, and I hired an editor to kind of put it together. And I posted it on Instagram. Here's my book, and within I think 36 hours of that, it was an international bestseller. It's amazing. I was humbled. I was brought to tears. Like, I guess that's the power of social media, right? So, and then meeting people like you, in Australia, in the UK, all Philippines, all over the world, people who share a common goal of, either the midwives or the practitioners who serve the childbearing women and their families, or childbearing women and their families, connecting all over the world. They all want the same thing. They want an empowered birth. They want a healthy birth. They might want a home. I'm not just about home birth. It's like, sort of like, how can I have that philosophy of care? How can I have that home birth like experience in the hospital? So I've helped a lot of families around the world. They have no access to home birth midwives, or they have, let's say, high blood pressure and they can't have a home birth. Their insurance doesn't cover, or whatever. They can still have a beautiful, healthy experience, And I'm amazed about the wonderful things that have come out of social media.
I think it says something beautiful about the future, and how, the power of integrity and authenticity, it will win out. And we could talk about that a long time, but, we're here to talk about having babies. So I guess the model, your website
and their partners. Yeah.
Your website is a beautiful read. Anyone listening here, I really recommend going to Anne's website, because I think you'll get a taste of what a wonderful author you must be, because your writing on your websites is of a phenomenal quality, a great storyteller. Tell us the story of how you came to be practicing your holistic midwifery model.
Okay. So, well, that goes back a long time. I was in nursing school when it was in the 80s, early 80s, because no, I'm sorry, not the early 80s. I graduated in 85. So I guess, yeah, because I wanted to help people. I didn't have, and even back then, in nursing school, I was very conscious about a person. And I think that's, we got some of that in nursing school, but I just was always very conscious that the person is a whole person, and they're part of a family, and they're part of a culture. And yes, they might have high blood pressure, but they're not just high blood pressure, or yes, they're pregnant, but they're not just a uterus. It's it's the whole, and also I was very interested in how to really help people heal. The allopathic modern medicine is only a very narrow approach. And sometimes we can draw on the wisdom of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, or Ayurvedic, the Eastern Indian, right, yogic approach to health, which I've always been into sort of that. I've always been into yoga and breath work as far back as I can remember. And healing, eating healthfully, exercising, being active, getting fresh air, just a lot of common sense things that are kind of missing in the modern world. And how to, if someone has a cold I wasn't seeing that people were really being healed in the standard hospital situation. Yes, it's there for, we need that for, major serious complications, car accidents, things like that. But if someone's really having, a cold or depression, or frequent urinary tract infections, I'm not sure that antibiotics is the only, for urinary tract infections, how do we really help that person, draw from all the effective modalities you know, so I was always into it, but I didn't really solidify it until I think I became a parent myself. And actually, so when I was in nursing school, I loved obstetrics. That was into obstetrics, but I think it was working in obstetrics in a local hospital where I developed fear of birth, and where I was scared of having my own babies, and I was I was really frightened about what was going on in my unit. Like I was attending more cesareans than natural births. I saw a lot of problems caused by the medical interventions when everybody was healthy. Like a healthy woman walking into labor started getting was treated like a sick person, and started getting a lot of complications from the interventions. And then we had to rescue, because I was a nurse, and I was having to rescue a lot of the problems that were caused by the meddling and interventions that I was seeing. That's pretty routine. But I think it was when I had my own baby on that floor, and I really had I took Lamaze, and I was given the royal treatment because I was like I was a nurse on the unit. But once you're given a hospital gown, and you're kind of stripped of your individuality, and then you're treated like you're sick. And I felt sick, because I had, IV, and you can't eat, and like all this stuff that it didn't feel right. But it just created, one problem after the other. So who can labor well when they're told they can't eat and they can't move because they're attached to monitors, and I'm scared, and the doctor kept coming in and telling me I'm still 4. And so no animal would be able to labor in those conditions that were putting women in routinely. And there was nothing wrong with me, so it was that was very eye-opening, that whole experience. And it was just, of course I wasn't laboring. So then they needed Pitocin, and that I couldn't, my Lamaze went out the window at that point. And then I needed an epidural. And then what happened was her heartbeat went very dangerously low. And they called a crash section, a stat section. They had like minutes to get my baby out. And I was petrified. Right. And so then here I am in my own hospital that I work, and I knew what was going to happen. I was very scared of major surgery. I was young and a dancer and a yoga, it was very scary to me. And I didn't always see good outcomes. And so when I was lying on that operating table waiting for the assistant surgeon who never came. So, 10 minutes, I knew they had minutes to get her out, but 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45. I mean, I went from in my head and my body to like, something's going to be really wrong, to like, she's dead. I can't even explain the terror that was going on in my head. And the assistant surgeon never came, and the epidural dilated me apparently because I started pushing. I mean, that's like a miracle in about an hour. And then I called for help. Doctor comes running in. He's, panicked, setting up, get me the vacuum. And he cut a big episiotomy and vacuumed her out. And I didn't want to see her because like, I was convinced she was dead, and she was fine. She was totally fine. I was not fine. And now I know what I have was birth trauma, but I was traumatized. I was absolutely traumatized, but it was that experience that solidified, like, there needs to be something different. Like, this is not the way we're supposed to be giving birth, right?
And I think that's the way a lot of us come to this, like at this webinar, and it's certainly the inspiration like behind why I'm doing it, because how to just birth in our culture right now, we don't know how to do it. We're scared of. Sometimes we can go through these really overwhelming experiences like you did, and other teachers here have, and then we go, hang on, we can only go up from here. Must be something else better out there, and it's about discovery.
Absolutely.
And communication
and it was actually, I was speaking to a colleague of mine who, she said to me, why don't you just become a midwife? I was telling her what my struggles were as working on that unit and my own birth, and she said, why don't you just become a midwife? And I had said, what's a midwife? Like, I really didn't know, but I researched it and went to, when I went to midwifery school, I was like, oh, I'm home. like there, it was like a completely different paradigm. And I've been living that paradigm now, and I gave birth my other children with that paradigm. And if it works with me, who was the biggest wimp, I was a traumatized, freaked out, person, afraid of the whole thing. And I said to my midwife, because there, the power is given to the woman. We don't do interventions unless you don't fix something that's not broken. So there's a big reverence for the wisdom, just like a woman's body knows how to beat, the heart knows how to beat, and her lungs know how to breathe, her body knows how to give birth. We just have to kind of get out of its way and get out of our own. And I remember saying to my midwife, I believe this philosophy. It has to work for me so that I can authentically promote it. And she's like, oh, don't worry, you'll see, it'll be healing, so wonderful. And she was right. It was a beautiful, undisturbed physiologic birth. And I had a very competent midwife who supported me, who believed in me, and believed in birth. And the best intervention is sort of like the calm, loving presence of a very capable, midwife who knows, when to, keep hands off. Like Michelle O'Don, he's a famous obstetrician who says the best intervention at birth. He said it at a conference of 500, midwives. He said the best intervention in a healthy birth, what is it? And everyone was raising their hand, and they were all wrong. And this is a group, a room of crowded, obstetric providers. And he said to knit, KNIT.
Like a grandma.
Because it's this calm presence of a practitioner who's seen it all and knows when to be calm, and that calm is contagious. That woman who's laboring will feel that calm, and my heart's open, eyes are open, ears are open, but you see, providers in the hospital especially tend to feel they need to fix things and keep their hands busy, and the knitting just it keeps our hands occupied, so we don't interfere. And of course, if something is
hire a midwife and get a bonus pair of baby booties.
Yeah, right. Now, well, a lot of midwives make all kinds of things. I can't knit. I can certainly sew, repair lacerations, but I can't knit. But that's really the concept. And the more births I do, it's now almost 24 years. I'm just humbled, and the less I realize we have to do. Yes, of course, emergencies happen and we want to prevent them and we want to deal with them. And you have to have a skilled provider, very trained, seasoned provider who can deal with that. But the vast majority of times, I'm amazed how well it works. And I also, I have a home birth practice, and I also attend births. We have a very large immigrant population, and I love to work with those who are less privileged and come over to this country from a lot of the Southern Latin communities. And there's a lot of immigrants that just find refuge in the United States, and especially in New York and in this hospital. And I am amazed how well they birth. They don't take classes. They come from we used to be for thousands of years. They're surrounded by birth and breastfeeding, and they're used to having it hard. It's sort of, they don't run from pain like the modern world sort of does. We're just used to, okay, push the computer and have something happen immediately. They're used to being rural and in tribal sort of communities, and they're sort of displaced now in the United States. But they birth so well. I'm amazed. They're not in their own way. I have much more work to do with the modern woman, the Western woman.
I guess that sense of self-reliance and I can do this. that survival drive. Yeah.
The survival drive, they're surrounded by it.
Yeah.
They help each other. It's
Yeah.
like how kind of we all used to be tribal,
Oh yeah.
women
Yeah.
helping women.
Absolutely.
Women were surrounded by birth because birth was happening at home.
I think we're all really grateful that you got that advice about being a midwife. The whole world is grateful that you took that path.
Yeah,
And
I can't imagine another one.
no, we're here today. In that holistic midwifery model that you practice, when someone comes to you for their first appointment, a pregnant mum, what does that first appointment look like?
Well, we always start. You're talking about in the hospital practice, or in the home birth practice, just any.
Just any woman who says, yeah, I want Anne Margolis to be my midwife, and she rings you up and you have a first session with her. Like what is that?
Yeah. So usually it's first a lot of questions. So either the mom has questions or she's really into it and the partner has a lot of questions. So I always start with, let's face the fears, face the questions, whatever it is. And because it's usually, that's what is important to that woman and her family, right? So we start with the questions and then, so usually it's like there's sort of like a consultation where they come and they talk, they ask me basic questions. And sometimes, it could be like, I'm not sure if I want to do this or I can do this, or what if, my friend had the C-section, am I going to have one? Or, they all there's all different questions, right? And so we'll go with that. And then I talk about the practice and what to expect. So in the holistic practice, because I work at a clinic. So in the holistic practice, I give about an hour for that. And then I talk about my practice and how, what to expect. So the initial visit would be about 2.5 hours should they want to, let's say, plan to do this. And that's where I go over their whole history. We do have to do some of I am wearing the medical lifeguard hat kind of thing. So yes, I want to make sure that it's safe for them to proceed with planning for this type of birth. Do they have any medical problems? Do they have any, have they had surgery before? Some of the basic questions, gynecologic issues. And then we go into lifestyle, diet, exercise, time on the, how much time are they connecting with others out or out in nature versus on just how they live their life and what's their approach to health and wellness and that kind of stuff. And then we talk about their, specific issues that they have. Some may be battling a little, mild ups and down with emotions, depression, anxiety. Some have, everyone has something that they're dealing with, frequent yeast infections, issues with their partner, ambivalence with the pregnancy, or everything's just fine and dandy, but dad is really not into her. He's very nervous, so there's always something that we will address. And then there's a physical exam and I draw the labs. The basic labs that are needed. And then each subsequent visit, so we really need to get to know each other. I need to know them. They need to know me. They need to be able to feel, especially the mom needs to be able to feel that, I can relax with this person. Like I am, because in labor, it's like, she's going to poop and pee and be vulnerable and things are going to get really intense. And she needs to feel that she can, trust me, that she can relax and become totally uninhibited. She can barf on me, she's gonna be naked, right? She's gonna birth her baby, right? So I'm gonna hold her in that space. So she needs to feel that, and I need to, get a sense of it's a relationship building. How can I help this person? What does she like? What does she not like? And that may change in different parts of the labor. And then if she wants an ultrasound, or if she wants certain tests that are quote unquote elective, we talk about the pros and cons of all the various interventions and tests and procedures that are thrown at pregnant women through their whole journey, and even in labor and delivery and postpartum. And we talk about all that. And at each, if she wants an ultrasound, like, we can write prescription for that. And if anything, if there's an issue, let's say she has a urinary tract infection, right? So holistic care would be, okay, so how, in certain fluids to increase, diet issues. Does she want herbs or homeopathic remedies, or, what are the natural remedies that work? But yeah, like if nothing is working, or she says, you know what, I just want antibiotics because I had this last time and it put me into preterm labor, or, I can write a prescription, for antibiotics, but I would say, make sure to take a good probiotic. And, so holistic care is, drawing on all the different modalities, what's going to work most effectively for this, situation. And then as we get closer to the third, when she's term, I like to start around, the third trimester, preparing, making sure that she is preparing for this type of birth that she wants. If she wants a natural birth, epidural, even if she wants an epidural, we still have to prepare, because women don't always get an epidural when they want. And it doesn't always work, and they still have to deal with early active labor, which can be intense and pushing, and right, so how can we prepare? And so I use a lot of the yoga techniques, the breath work techniques, mindfulness techniques, and I try to teach her these things throughout so that she can practice, so they become habitual, so that when she's in the heat of any intense situation, whether it's a leg cramp or labor, that she just knows how to ground and center and get right into her breathing and inner calm, and how to, it just become like the response to intensity can be more embracing, and how can we shift attitudes so that it's not something that she's afraid of, but wow, cool, like I'm gonna have a labor that I love. Yeah, it's intense, but so is running the marathon, so is climbing Mount Everest. There are people that do all this, intense things all the time, and they're feeling all sorts of intense sensations. It's the story we tell ourselves, like, oh, something's wrong, I'm suffering, I can't do it, but the successful athletes are don't have that attitude. They're like, I'm gonna rock this, I'm gonna win this, I'm gonna do it. Yes, things are hurting, but they're transcending the pain. So there's a lot of attitude shift, language shift, inner self-talk shift that we work on through the pregnancy, so that when she's in it, I tell people, don't wing it. Yes, if you're coming from Guatemala and you're surrounded by everybody's having home births, and that's different, right? These women don't need childbirth classes. They just do it, right? A horse doesn't need a childbirth class. I'm not that women, indigenous, cultures are animals, but we were this way. We were in these communities surrounded by birth, and we just did it,
Yeah,
so,
there's a lot to unpack in what you've just said.
Like Ina May, she says, let your inner monkey do it, right? We have to tap into our instinctual.
Exactly. And you've said a lot of points, like, being there for birth for a woman as an adult, it's such an intimate experience. It might be the relationship you have with your caregivers, like your midwife, might be the most intimate experience you have with anyone in your life, because if you said, you might be barfing, peeing, pooping, you haven't been
all of it, the birth juice. Yes.
Other points is like, what inspired my second birth and why I'm doing this webinar series today is that you know, the stories like Anna May wrote in her books, and of those traditional communities where people would just go and birth, you know, in the bushes and come back with a baby. And took no time. And I grew up on a farm and I knew it could be done. I just knew it was a matter of unlocking the mindset, you know, of just, you know, how it's done. Now
Unlocking the mindset, it just doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Getting rid of the mind, in fact, is
yes, getting out of our minds is really the work I need to help modern women do. When they come with their list of questions and they've Googled everything, you know, there's a little bit of me goes off. Oh, you know, the more they're if they've gardened, if they've farmed, if they're connected to the biological clock in any way, because everybody's so industrialized and modernized now, you know, that the more that they're outside and you know, connected to their bodies, and you know, whether they're dancers or yoga teachers or practitioners or any sort of, it could be artists, you know, they tend, I have seen, you know, the more people that are in their head and in the corporate world or just, you know, techie and you know, there's a lot more work sometimes that I need to do to have them tap into their power, their huge other part of their body and being. Right.
Now you do the clarity breath work as a practitioner. What is that, and do you ever do that with your mums?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Well, breath work, I mean, is getting a huge, I mean, there's so much research now on the power of breath work in terms of, I mean, the yogis for thousands of years have known all along, have harnessed certain breath work exercises to create ecstasy, to create activation and energy in the body, to calm, you know, to concentrate. Top Navy SEALs and warriors all throughout, you know, any master of anything has, even a dancer, you know, move with the breath. This is not just a saying. They need to, you know, those people that, martial artists, that they can, you know, like hone their concentration and then chop a brick. They're using breath, and they're using the power of concentration. So a lot of, you know, childbirthing techniques have also tried to bring in some aspects of breath to help people get into their bodies, to help people, you know, focus and calm, and it's very meditative, you know. So that's one aspect that I use all the time. There's so many different types of breathing exercises that you know, Andrew Weil and a lot of them, even, you know, it's in the medical literature, that we can control our autonomic system. We can relax and influence the parasympathetic nervous system. I mean, Wim Hof, I don't know if you've heard of him, the Iceman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, how do you think he climbs Mount Everest in shorts, or you know, he immerses in ice water and loves it? He is learning how to focus, you know, it's concentrating and relaxing and breath to intensity such that it no longer is an intense situation, it's enjoyable. And so that was, you know, that was the beginning of my work with breath, and I use it all the time. Anytime there's any, you know, I tell women, you know, when you hear the phone go off, or you're waiting, you know, the ringtone goes off, or the notification, or you're waiting in line, or someone triggers you, take a breath. You know, just like a sigh of relief, right? Just that. But that's a whole nother subject about clarity breath work. That is a specific type of breath to heal stress and trauma in the body. And it's a miracle. I mean, it saved my life, and I use it. That's, you know, for people who have any sort of emotional upset, trauma from any time in their life. They could have, I hear from so many women, like, you know, childhood abuse, incest, sexual trauma, even, you know, just like living with a critical parent, for example, you know, it can be a trauma for a child. The chronic stress of everyday modern living can be, you know, just minor trauma, right? But it's constant stress. And there's this, animals in the wild. We study trauma by looking at animals in the wild, the fight or flight response, right? If there's deer or a bunch of kangaroo, right? And there's what do you have in Australia? Tigers? Do you have lions? Do you have it?
No.
Who's the predator for the kangaroo?
There really wasn't any. See, that Australia is interesting. Australia is so there was dingo, but not really. The main predators in Australia are kangaroo. So in Australia, what's actually, there's no, the animals here evolved.
Deer?
Fight, because there was no predators until humans came with their dogs and cats.
Okay, so do you have deer?
Wild deer, we have got wild.
Yes. Okay, so wild deer, right? Yeah. So a bunch of the wild deer, they're in a natural alert calm. That's all animals. That's what they walk around looking. They're in sort of a very alert calm. And if there's if one of them senses danger, which could be a predator, right? A tiger is going to eat me. The sympathetic fight or flight reaction occurs. And that's just a normal, we have the reptilian brain. We that's a normal response to danger. Is someone going to eat me, or am I going to eat it? Right? It's basic. It's simple. So deer, if a deer can run for its life, it will. If a deer, needs to fight, it will lose. And then there's another trauma reaction, which be to play dead. Because when animals play dead, it's actually the body is doing a bunch of things to that deer so it won't feel the pain of being attacked, or it could actually trick the predator. This is already dead. The predator will go look for somebody else, and then the deer will escape. But when the deer gets loose, the deer will shake off the stress. It literally, any animal, when it's stressed after the danger, it shakes. It just shakes it off, and then it just resumes being in the alert, calm state. So human beings don't do that. We're cultured not to. Like, so when we're babies, babies are living in their emotion. They are without shame. They are joy. They are, or if a baby's upset, they are, raging like a toddler having a temper tantrum. They are so not embarrassed. They're very proud and embodying anger or embodying sadness. They have a huge temper tantrum, and then they go back to play. Like, they reset. When is it that we were told, stop, don't cry, men don't cry, so be a man, or okay, that's enough, you're being too sensitive, or the way we're cultured eventually is that we're taught to kind of repress and keep it down and stuff it, or escape, or numb, or deny. And that is trauma stored in the body. So it will come out in disease, or mental, or emotional, or physical. And this type of breath work just releases it from the body. It sort of, so it's very powerful, very effective. And, so it's a combination of a certain type of breath with an intention and with the ability to really let go. And the more that we work together, the more a person can let go. And helping somebody have that sort of experience to actually, it's like rebirthing, because, they have to, when you're breathing in this type of way, a lot of sensations come up, and they could be uncomfortable and they could be comfortable, but we need to be able to relax into the intensity and let them come. It's kind of like giving birth. Let the panic come, let the anxiety, let all these unprocessed sensations that we call psychic pain, or whatever, our bodies are very wise. Whatever will be felt. And if we just allow it, it just comes and goes as a wave, like the weather, like a storm. And then the body just releases, and it's gone forever. It's very powerful. So that's a whole other topic. I'm very into it. I'm very passionate about it. And I work with women women processing traumatic births. Their partners, and sometimes the whole family will do some breath work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess birth really is about submitting to that physical experience, no matter what kind of comes up for you during that process.
Yes. And you have to, like I tell women at birth, we need to be able to relax into intensity, because it's just without the story. It may hurt, but whatever it is, let's just stay focused on the sensation. It feels like a burning, a tightening, if pressure. Okay, just stay with the sensation and actually encourage it. Like, can you magnify it? Can you embrace it? Can you intensify it? And actually, women at the peak of labor, when it's the most intense, they'll say to me, I can't. I'm going to die. I'm going to break open, cut me. Like, people who were passionate about a natural birth, they get to this state of the intense sensation becomes so intense, they fight it. And what happens is when they fight it, it either stops or makes it worse. So what happens when you stop the fighting and allow, and how about go into it, and then they birth? And so it's amazing how that also works in a sort of a breathwork healing situation.
One thing that I do when I'm feeling intense things is that I remember that, like, my sense of normality and what's normal for my experiences, it's just me. I mean, the sun feels really, really hot, but it probably doesn't feel that hot, and it accepts how hot it is. A waterfall might feel like it's falling all the time, but that's normal for it. So, what we feel is just that we have this idea of normal. So if we jump out and say, no, I'm simply just feeling this, and this is just me, and I'm not going anywhere, and it's...
And what's cool about labor is that normal labor, right? So all the intense sensations of labor, if you knew that actually they're healthy, and this is actually helping you to birth, like, nothing to fear. It's actually something to embrace. Let's have fun with it. That's when we bring, it's not just about bearing it, but how can we enjoy this? How can, let's make this an adventure of a lifetime. How can we, so there, can we bring pleasure into the experience, right? So yeah, that's how we, that's in my course. But like, when you asked how I bring people through the practice, there's a lot that we have to do depending on the needs of a woman,
Yeah. If a woman is obviously wanting to make her birth more sensual and not be in that, medicalized kind of setup like you've talked about, how can you make a birth, sensual?
Oh, so I'm gonna have fun with that. Yeah. So I tell women, no matter where they're gonna be, home, birth center, or hospital, right? So think about what sort of the environment that got you pregnant, right? The sensual environment that you were in, like, how can we create that in, or anything that pleases all five senses in your birth space. So what do you like to smell? I've had women, they love lavender, or I had a woman that say, I love the smell of apple pie. So for her birth, she didn't like essential oil apple smell. So she wanted to have baked apples baking, and that smell was just something for her. It could be rose or any essential oil diffuser. Somebody likes citrus. What do they like to smell or no smell? Some people are offended by the smell. So we talk about smell. What's just sort of inspires you, or is pleasant for you. Taste. So what do you like to eat? So we talk about common labor foods that are, you think about your body's running a 26-mile marathon. It's a very athletic event for the body. We need to feed it, but what is it that, that you would love to eat and drink, the things that would help. And then touch. How do you like to be touched? Do you like a firm? Do you like a soft? Do you like deep tissue? Do you like, be touching here? Do you like caress, feather? There's so many different ways that a person likes to be touched. What materials do you like to feel on your body? So I guess when you're pushing, things will get messy, but wear something that makes you just feel like a goddess, just beautiful and comfortable and luscious and yummy. And maybe the towels that you have at the birth and the sheets that you have, just think of the texture and how that is, would appeal to you. And then playlist sounds. So I talk about make 3 playlists. One would be very relaxing. So what's relaxing for you? Do you like the waterfall? Do you like a stream or the sound of waves? Or, because waves, it's like labor, they come and they go and they come and they go. Jungle sounds, relaxing spa music, right? And then sensual, like the second playlist, like slow dancing. What's sensual, sexy, sort of like how you would slow dance with your partner. Different points in labor, we use different ones depending on what's needed, so some think of like R&B or just, some just really yummy, sensual sound music. And then 3 would be like, let's get rocking. Let's like hip hop, funk, African dance, boogie, any kind of like upbeat, dancey music. And some people like the sound of chimes. Everybody has different sense, but like think about this and what can you bring into your birth space, and then and vision. What do you like to see? What's inspiring? So I've had women, they wanted to see pictures of historical women from all over the world birthing in the upright squatting position, which is like a universal, like you look at history of birth, cave pictures, art, sculptures in, could be Egypt, Africa, Australia, like all over the world. And this woman was collecting them, and she was, had them all over her birth space, affirmations, pictures of her family, what Christmas lights, really nice, like, especially if a woman is birthing in the hospital, can't use candles. That's a really nice, you dim shut off the lights and just have these little Christmas lights sort of ornamenting everywhere. That's really soothing. And I tell them, when a woman is in labor, you should know that 300,000 other women are laboring with you that day as you're laboring, and billions have given birth before you. So sometimes women will like to have sort of pictures of that. Or there was one other thing I was thinking of. This one woman wanted pictures of her farm animals and the babies, just to remind her of, because she was raised on a farm, and her husband had a farm, and she just liked the pictures of that. So it can really vary. Another nice picture is flowers, because just as a tight rosebud, for example, gradually will just open and blossom. So will she. Yeah. She's just kind of like that. She's on that natural sort of, transformation.
My first birth wasn't sensual at all. I didn't really know how to do that in a hospital setting. In the second birth, when I went into hospital, I took my honey, I took my fresh strawberries. I had like this really beautiful quilted red satin lacy eye mask that I put over my eyes while I labored. And I took in these red sequined Ugg boots to wear to keep my feet warm. And my friend, she brought all her crystals and put her crystals all around the bath, like just made a line of crystals around the edge of the water, like the water bath where I was laboring.
Things make a difference.
Yeah, it did. And afterwards, when I was, in the hospital with my baby, for a few days, like the attendants would come in and go, "Are you a movie star?" Because they'd be like, I had all these, I had, the satin eye mask and the glittery Ugg boots, and I'm like, not yet.
No, I'm just having fun with my birth.
Yeah. So you can do it in a hospital. There's so much awesome information in there. Look, we've really, like, our whole conversation's really been about how a woman can have more confidence, like, going into birth. Is there like any specific advice you'd like to give a woman who, might be feeling a bit afraid, that how she can have that confidence like we've been talking about?
Yeah, well, I wish there was just like a one, just say this and that will do it. But women need to sort of this is what my course is, about, like how, all the steps of how that can be.
How can moms take your course? Where do they find?
On my website, it's homesweethomebirth.com. It's on the home page. It's online. Love Your Birth online. Do you want me to? Can I send a link?
Yes, send me the link, and we'll put it in the blog post and down below this webinar as well, so people can.
Yeah. So, but what I was saying about the women need to or relearn what they already know how to do. Mm-hmm. So I like women to know that their bodies were, our bodies were built to grow and birth and breastfeed our babies. Unless we had, just like our lungs were meant to breathe. Not everybody has asthma and lung disease, right? So yes, there are people that have lung issues, right? If someone has asthma, then we need to address that. But for the vast majority, women will breathe or their heart will beat and they don't have to think about it. So it's very similar to birth, if we to remember to trust that our bodies know how to do it. And then, the rest is once we can really know that, right? And then the rest is how can we make this the most amazing experience of our life? It's a peak life experience. Yes, it's a body experience, but it's also it's very deeply mind, body, heart, and soul. You know, life changing. I love
that. Like in terms of goal setting, like how can I make this the most wonderful experience of my life is amazing. Like not everyone is going to be able to birth vaginally. Things happen. But we can have things like a gentle cesarean. Do you want to walk us through what a gentle cesarean?
Yes, I post about it a lot. That's in my book. So yes, that's one thing that we didn't get into is that I tell every woman to expect the unexpected. Right? So if a woman is, I want a water birth, and for whatever reason, it's not working in the water, and she gives birth, kneeling on a chair.
Yeah,
that's what worked, and that doesn't mean something's the matter. She wanted to, so it could be something like, I want my daughter at my birth. I want my daughter at my birth. I want my daughter at my birth. And and the daughter gets prepared and takes sibling classes and reads books and watches movies. And at the birth, the daughter's freaked out and absolutely does not want to be at the birth. Or the daughter wants to be at the birth, but it's stopping mom's labor and she's getting frustrated. So we have to be, I had a woman, for example, she wanted natural, but she was vomiting a lot and she wasn't eating and drinking. And it got her exhausted and dehydrated. And it was actually IV fluids that saved her from having to go to the hospital. And she ended up, just having IV fluids gave her the energy that she needed to have her baby, right? So we don't ever like to do, intervention for everybody. Most of the time we encourage birth without intervention, but interventions are there for a reason. And if we need them, we need them. It gets a little harder I'll get to that in a minute. So I encourage birth preferences. I don't, instead of a birth plan, put out your intention, plan for the type of birth you want. When you're in the situation, we need to let go and surrender. We need to let go what most of things that we cannot control, right? And we want a healthy mom and a healthy baby. So in labor, yes, we have to let go and actually embrace everything that happens as a blessing and as what we and our baby need for that journey. So that might be an epidural, and it's not a failure. There's no failure in labor. That might be a woman is not coping with her baby's posterior. She's been up 5 nights and we've tried everything A to Z to help turn the baby and she just can't do it. So you know what? In that situation, a compassionate use of an epidural will just relax her and she'll have a vaginal birth. That's not a failure. That is like, wow, I am so grateful that modern medicine has this intervention. So then we take that to, sometimes there's serious life-threatening situations where we need cesarean, and that's a cesarean birth. And yes, we're going to have to process and heal from that mentally and physically. But can we love that? That's a birth. That is the birth of that mom and that baby. And we need to celebrate it, right? How can we sort of bring the home birth experience that, and the celebratory experience into the OR? So a gentle cesarean is like, they're trying, that's sort of like the catch-all term right now, is allowing mom to receive her baby. So taking down the drape, and some doctors are even encouraging her to, wear sterile gloves, wash her hands, wear sterile gloves so that she can receive her baby. Have when the incision is made into the uterus, let the baby emerge, sort of have, so nobody's like putting fundal pressure on the top of the belly like they used to force the baby out, but allow sort of the baby to have that squeeze and come out a bit more, sort of on its own, a bit of a slower time. Have music in the room, whoever is supportive to the mom, not just, a lot of ORs, they just allow one person. Maybe she wants more people with her who's supportive. Delayed cord clamping, allowing the baby to get the cord, blood, immediate bonding, and skin to skin, and breastfeeding. So there are changes that are happening in certain operative suites around the world that are encouraging and enabling this. And I post on it a lot because it can really just restore humanity to the operating room.
You can. And I think one of the really important points that you've touched on there is that no matter what happens, don't ever consider yourself a failure, because you've done amazing. Like wherever you are in this process, you've done amazing to get here. And, even for seasoned, midwives and birthers, like there's a lot that you learn through each birth. And whatever happens, like forgive yourself, because you did the best in that moment that you knew how to do. And life is about learning. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, like the end of suffering really comes when we embrace our journey, when we say yes to what is. Yeah. Because so many times we fight what is. Yes, we can make all these plans and intentions and all this, but when it comes down to it in that moment, we need to surrender to what is and love what is, and actually be grateful for what is, because that's what we needed. That's what the baby needed to come into this world. Everything that we're faced with, and I've dealt with my fair share of challenges in my own life, in addition to helping other, families. Sometimes people get sick. Sometimes emergencies happen. Sometimes there's terrible accidents and tragedies. That's just part of human life, right? And there, I'm a spiritual person. I can't be. I really do believe I can't approach life in another way. I do believe we're spirits in bodies temporarily, and that there's more to life than
there sure is. Actually, you've brought something up there I'd like to explore maybe with you a little bit more in the last couple minutes of our talk, but you've brought up that question of gratitude and how that opens that sense of love and acceptance for ourselves. Do you want to maybe do you have any insights into that power of gratitude and love, maybe towards the end of a woman's pregnancy as she comes towards her birth, maybe how practices of gratitude maybe can help her?
Well, yeah, I use breath work a lot with that, because when you breath work accesses sort of the subconscious, which really governs everything. Our consciousness is like the tip of the iceberg. The vast, unconscious is what, is what kind of we store everything, our limiting beliefs and all sorts of things. But yeah, so how can there's meditations that we can cultivate gratitude but it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. Look, I got this way when my own daughter had a terminal illness. I'm not just sitting up here saying, oh, you got to be grateful and love, like I was in the trenches, right? And I had a decision, did I want to crawl up in a fetal position and be like my mom, who was, poor thing, why? like she was really unable to function. Or how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? How can I be there and help my daughter, help my family, and help my families in my practice? You know, and then it got me into a whole, whether it's Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie or Bernie Siegel. There's so many practitioners out there, healers out there that went through horror and came out the other end. And there's a unifying sort of factor in a lot of it, is embracing and not fighting, and a spiritual component to it, you know. It's that's a whole other topic. You know, I could go on for hours on that alone, but it's a practice. It's not easy. But I got to it actually when I was in the lowest point of my life, I think. And thankfully she survived, but it was 8 years of hell. And it was a miracle that she survived, actually. But my own daughter looks at that experience when she was 80 pounds and chemotherapy and, you know, just no hair, and she was a teenager. I mean, she looks at that experience. She was our teacher. She thought this was happening to her for her own, like, spiritual, this is what she needed. She was so connected to spirit, to God, whatever you call the power that's above or around and in us. And there was just no way she was our teacher. And I chose to listen, you know, and I got into a ton of different, there's so much literature out there. Have you heard of Bernie Siegel?
Not Bernie Siegel, no.
No, he's an oncologist. He's a surgical oncologist who became very famous in his books, Peace, Love, Medicine and Miracles, Peace, Love and Healing. He's written a lot of prescriptions for living, but he started to look at the common denominators of those that survived when they were meant to die, those that survived terminal cancer. And then he started to teach people on how to do that so that you don't get cancer, you know. But very, very top, wonderful person to read his books and listen to him. But there's so many other people like it, you know. And just my own yoga practice I think yoga is a wonderful way. It's not, you know, the modern. Some of the modern, you know, people go into, you know, they want a power workout. They go for the power vinyasa. But real yoga practice is a practice. It's not a bunch of exercises, stretches, and it's sort of a practice of mindfulness and of acceptance and of cultivating gratitude and connecting to that part of our being that is so beyond emotion and thought. And you know, the more I think that a person practices authentic yoga, that's sort of a way to cultivate it.
Yeah.
To cultivate it, you know, as a lifestyle.
Yeah. But we're all I'm so grateful that your daughter's still here.
So am I.
I'm grateful that you've spent this time with us, and you've got your amazing book that people, you know, can come and read and learn the answers to all those common questions that you've been asked. And you've got the course. People can come.
I sent you the link, you see?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll put that up. And that people can even come and get like a consultation with you by, you know, visiting your website and connecting.
Oh yeah, I love when they do that, because like sometimes that's something on social media. They'll say, what would you recommend holistically for my heartburn or for my headaches? I can't answer that on Instagram, you know, so I think that's more of a conversation. And I have people that tell me, you know, their doctor spends 5 minutes with them. You know, what can I tell them about how to help them heal from their cold or their flu or whatever it is. And that sort of birthed the consultations, because all these people were asking me questions.
Mm-hmm. And you've got your amazing social media pages that everyone can follow. And look, thank you for your time today. I'm going to ask you, we'll have to get you back another time because there's still so many questions.
Oh, yes.
I just want to ask you a general question before you go, because I know this is something that you're really passionate about. And that is like, what ideas do you have, probably specific to your own country, about you know, how to improve like the, you know, the mortality rates and things like that in the systems that your country is currently experiencing?
Well, I'm very, yeah, you're right. I'm very passionate about that. I think the best way to change because it's very hard to get doctors and institutions, hospitals to change. People feel like, where do you start, you know? But
Yeah.
you know what? Empowered women who are passionate, who speak up respectfully, will change things.
Yeah.
I had a woman, a testimony to this was a woman who was in Central America. Her husband was stationed there, and she had to give birth there, and she was in a remote area, and her doctors told her he doesn't do natural birth. In fact, he had a cesarean rate that was over 90%. He says most of his births are cesarean, and she's like, "But I want I want a natural birth," and it was the only obstetrician that she had access to. So she took my course, and she became very empowered, and she went back to him and just respectfully spoke up. I don't want intervention. I believe, and just a lot of the stuff that she was empowered with knowledge about how birth works, and she wanted something goes wrong, but she trusts that her body can do it, and she got him to agree to it very reluctantly, but she had a beautiful natural birth. Just think how that changed that man, and how that is the ripple effect of how he's going to practice. She sent me a beautiful video of her birth. It was very sensual, very spiritual, very sacred, and completely hands off. He did not touch her until he had to catch the baby. That affected him deeply, she told me, and I was crying when I read her letter and I saw this video. Just that's how we change the world. That's when women realize, because people say, "Oh, I asked my doctor, or the hospital doesn't let me." It's your body and your baby, and if you're not asking for something reckless, like you're not going in and saying, "I want to shoot my baby up with heroin." You're saying, "I want a natural birth," right? Or "I don't want the cord cut," or whatever if what you're asking is very reasonable, you can respectfully request that, and if they don't honor it, you could switch providers until you find a provider that there's plenty of providers that are now. I'm hearing stories all over the world of how empowered, passionate women are making it. That's where we're gonna have. That's how the change is gonna come. I'm not, maybe public policy, and that's a bit harder to change, hospitals and doctors. But
well, let's hope that the mums listening to this talk today will feel inspired to advocate for their own unique birthing path, and
take back your birth, take back your health, take responsibility. Don't relinquish it to the hands of others, and that you do have a voice, and that you can respectfully, you don't have to be obnoxious. You could just respectfully speak up.
Yeah.
And do it in advance. Don't wait till you're in the moment, because you need to know if you and your provider are on the same page, and where he or she is practicing are on the same page. And you might want to write that up. In my course, I have all the different questions that you want to ask, and discuss with your partner, and so that some women don't even know that they have a question. I don't even know what to ask, right? We're so far removed from pregnancy and birth, but yeah, so that's I go over all the different questions and issues that could come up, and then you could think about what you want, and then it's great to present that to your provider and have a conversation. And if they're not, you need to know if they're on your page, or they'll work with you. And if not, you could switch and find someone. And if not, you just need to really respectfully speak up.
Yeah, let's hope that if we connect again, like let's say 5 years down the track, we're having a conversation. Let's hope those statistics have totally changed, and it can happen. It can happen. The world can wake up. People can wake up.
I think they are waking up.
They are. We have. Yeah, and that's why it's so exciting to see social media pages like yours, where it's such a big following and so many, people are learning about what, a normal evidence, based kind of birth looks like.
And there's so many wonderful pages that are based in Australia.
Yeah. We've got a huge
yeah.
movement here. I mean, oh my God, that's why I'm here today, because of the wonderful women who mentored and nurtured me through my births. And I tell some of the stories, of what they taught me through these webinars. But yeah, we have a huge culture in Australia, I think, of supporting a natural birth to the best of our ability, where we can in the hospital system, but certainly, home birth and natural birth. Thank you, Anne, for joining us.
A pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you everyone listening to the Learning to Birth webinars. I hope you've really enjoyed this, and come and join us for the next webinar.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.